going to start. I'm going to filling up a bucket here for my wheel cleaning utensils with Ammo Brute wheel soap. Here we're using Ammo Plum wheel cleaner. The disadvantage to this is that I used like half a bottle on just this one car, so I don't know how practical it is to use, but it certainly worked quite well. Traditionally I like to not use a bucket with soap. It just gets so nasty, and then with my cars with carbon ceramics, I don't need it. So normally what I do is sit here with my pressure washer and just kind of hose off my my sponge, which I'll probably do here anyway. And you can see the camera in here. You can see the typical iron breakdown. It turns purple. If we let it sit here even longer, it'll turn even more purple. This is the Easy Detail brush, and I haven't cleaned the new competition package wheels yet, but my guess, and I think I'm right, is that this is a good brush for it. You'd certainly, with these competition package wheels, want to get a lug brush. See, this is where using a bucket, I'm not a huge fan, because when, after if you went a week without washing your wheels, this bucket will get so nasty. What I'm going to do on all the tires is follow with Adam's rubber prep. This is the first time I'm using it. I really like it. I think it's, and I'll have more of an opinion on it sort of as I use it more, but I'm pretty sure it's significantly better than the Griots that I've been such a big fan of for cleaning rubber. And then this is a Tough Shine, just a tire brush. It doesn't hurt if you get it on the rotors, but you don't want to spray the rotors. Get the caliper. These wheels aren't going to bead all that much because there's not a lot of surface area, but notice, see how the water runs off, which will help you when you're blowing it out, with air. It just helps keep stuff from sticking to it. So here's at 8x speed, showing real quickly the using the Plum wheel cleaner, following with the Easy Detail brush, then coming back when doing the lugs real quickly with a little lug brush. Afterward, using a Griot's lambskin mitt, which doesn't exist anymore, so you have to find some sort of replacement. Lake Country makes one, cleaning all the sort of the barrels and the inside of the wheels. Following with some Adams tire rubber and tire cleaner, and then we'll finish off after sort of rinsing with a Hydro 2 and then pressurized water to clean it off. I'm going to use the Easy Detail brush to sort of just get the junk off the exhaust tips. So this is my first use of the brand new Adams strip wash, and my first inclination was that it was too thin. I'm like, oh shoot, it's not going to foam. So I filled my container up, and then I felt like I needed to add some more, and so prior to testing the prior to ever using it or using it at all, I was skeptical, but then after rinsing the car, prior to spraying it on and then using the product, you'll see here in a second, it actually foams up really, really nicely. After you foam the car, the purpose of the foam is, especially at this stage, is to strip or to get all the contaminants off. So you'll notice what I normally would do is foam the whole car and then let it sit, and you can see the foam just in real time here running off the vehicle. So you can see it running off the windows, and in theory, it should pull off the dirt or at least loosen the tougher, thicker stuff that wouldn't come off after the normal rinse. And eventually did a test to compare to the chemical guys, and they both sort of looked exactly the same. So again, I eventually got out some chemical guys and tested it out. But you'll notice here as we watch me go around the car here in a second, the amount of foam that's created here is pretty incredible. The rinse bucket, of course, is already filled, and then I'll fill up the soap bucket and then begin to wash the car rather than doing it the other way. I was just showing you there the grit guard, sort of the washboard, which I don't know, I don't really use it very like it's intended to, because these Adams wash mitts that you're seeing me use here just don't have a need to be scrubbed up against that washboard like maybe a microfiber or a traditional merino wool mitt would need to be agitated. So I'm sort of teaching Tim here how to, what's a good section to do. Clearly you would do a bigger section at the top of the car, so I can do sort of the whole half of the sort of the top section, including the windows. But then as I get down toward the lower section of the car, especially on the sides where there's more dirt, I'm gonna do sort of a swipe from top to bottom and then flip the pad. Then after doing that, the strip wash, we do our normal rinse. The next step is to use an iron out solution to remove any iron filings that might embed themselves in the paint. And let it sit for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and rinse it off. So let's see if we can't see a little bit of iron in the. And you guys see those little purple spots? There's not a ton, but there is some. See, like little. So here's our rinsing step, and taking extra care to get all of the iron out off. And then we're going to follow with this is Nanoskin Glide, so it's a roughly a 6 or 7 to 1 mix to get some lubrication on the paint, and use the Auto Scrub Nanoskin mitt and little block rather than getting out the actual circle sort of pad for the orbital. I'm not a huge fan of this thing. It doesn't work as well. I found certainly not as well as a clay bar, but in this case we just wanted to get any little sort of embedded particles and contaminants on the paint, if there were any, in order to sort of get it ready for claying. Again, with silver I could probably have gone right to our last step, but since this is a really expensive, really nice and brand new car with less than 500 miles on it, I figured, let's polish the thing out, let's get it really dialed in, and get sort of the best result we possibly can. All right, so we just rinsed it, and now Tim's drying it off in prep for polish. Next is to dry the car using an Adams Great White Waffle Weave drying towel, showing you it at 8 times speed. Just making sure, because we're not using a drying agent, to not really push too much. We really don't want to damage the paint, even though we're going to polish it. I was just thinking we should have dialed in the engine bay, but not necessary. It's got a nice satin finish to it. Everything's clean. It's the competition package seats. Super cool. I'm going to tape up to protect the rubber. We're also protecting the pad by taping this rubber area so the pad doesn't pick up all kinds of junk. This is the last of the jacked up audio, showing you an 8 times speed quick taping of the trim. We taped off the trim and the gills and the emblems and things like that to make sure we didn't do any damage to it or get any polish stuck in there. All right, so we taped off the headlights. Taped off the emblems, side gills, underneath it, a little strip underneath the side view mirror so we don't accidentally hit that. Taped off the rubber trim and the shadow line trim around the edge with some of the kamikaze tape. You can get that at esotericdetailing.com. And then we did the rear, did the tail lights after all that. And so the shadow line trim is just difficult. I mean, this is kind of how it goes. You guys are going to see sort of what I see. There's a big old hunk of nothing. You know, first of all, the paint is in great shape, I can tell. But it's harder to see any imperfections in this type of sort of silver paint. It would be really helpful if I had a totally black room and then I could grab my light and work with it. But again, a Sonax Perfect Finish is going to be just fine. It's going to jewel it up nicely. We got all that rubber taped off, so we can hit that part too. Get that dialed in. But one of our fellow Seth's Garage maniacs, who's a professional detailer, said, "Look, man, I really think you should really rethink priming the pad and residue control and things like that." So I started doing some more research, and of course Kevin Brown is the authority on this stuff. You know, if you have polish here and then none around the edges, you're gonna have hot spots on the pad, and it makes sense science-wise that we would be better off having a pad with equal amounts of polish on the entire sort of surface of it. When you're polishing, you're removing paint, right? So you're removing some of the clear coat, and then you have little pieces of that clear coat or residue that sort of builds up in the pad. And so the general sort of concept of residue control is we want to get that off of the pad or out of the pad. One way to do that would be to just change out pads often, which you still probably want to do. Otherwise, it just becomes less effective. Now I have the Mark II. This is the ES, so this is the original version, and we have the Mark II. So we'll flip back and forth, and the original version will run at 4.5. The Mark II will run at speed 4, and we'll do 4 passes. So which I learned from Todd at Esoteric. So we'll do 4, cross hatch passes with probably about 10 pounds of pressure. And then we're using a yellow polishing pad, not a finishing pad, but a yellow pad. Because I'm doing a 1-step, I think we'll see benefits from using sort of the diminishing polish that the Perfect Finish sort of breaks down as you make successive passes. So we get a little bit of cut and a nice finish, just to make sure that if there are little scratches and little sort of toweling marks and issues in the paint that we can't see because it's silver, we'll get all of that out and we'll have the car perfectly dialed, because we're going to put multiple layers of protection on it. So I want to make sure that the paint is really dialed in. The other thing I don't have on these, I actually took the washer mod off of the ES. The washer mod is of course a little washer that you're not supposed to do according to Rupes. It has little tiny notches on the side that you would put in here to help make sure that the pad remains rotating. I need to get another couple of washers and modify them. So I wanted to take the washer out of this one so I can take it to Home Depot and pick up the right size washer so I can modify it. But I wanted to just see both machines unaltered, is make a line to help ensure that we know that the pad is rotating. So I've got reasonably even coverage across the whole thing. I mean, it is a foam pad, so I don't want to cake it on there, but I do want to get coverage across the entire pad if I can help it. So do my 4 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put the cord up on my shoulder. I'm going to spread it around. So I'm actually going to treat this as a separate piece. So I'm going to work this panel right here. So first thing is to spread it around. Now I can do my thing. Notice the speed. Yeah, we're not going like this. We're controlling our speed. And I'm not applying 20 pounds of pressure, I'm applying about 10. That's from Todd Cooperrider. And then a lot of times on these edges, you might want to scrub up next to it. Being careful that there's always going to be less paint here or on the edge than there will be on the flat spot. And this edge isn't as sharp as, say, you know, this edge here, so not as important. But like edges on doors and things like that, you really want to get up in like here's an example where I'll roll up next to the edge so that I get all the way up in there, but I don't want to hold it on top of the edge, and I want to hold the thing on top because then I'm removing a little too much paint. I'm coming up to the edge. Notice how the pad I'm leaning, I'm just sort of scrubbing up next to it, and then I can come back this way. Make sure that I get all the way up the edge. Now this silver car, it's not as important because it's silver. But like on a black car, you would notice if this area wasn't dialed in as well as the rest of it. So that was pass number 2. There's pass number 3. There's pass number 4. So, I mean, you can't mess it up. I mean, the way you can mess up is if you hit the side, which isn't as easy now because of the way the pad designs are. But, you know, like the older ones would have, you know, the pad would come right up to the edge and you could, you know, nick the side of the paint or hit, you know, that's why we taped off over here so you won't burn it and hit, you know, with the side. The other thing to be careful of is like the door handles. So we'll come over periodically and blow out the pad. This thing doesn't have enough juice. It never hurt to use more pads, and then I'll prime it. Like another little tip that somebody suggested is use the circle to line it up. I was always using the edge, so that would give you a perfect alignment on your pad. Here's another little trick you can do. So I got the 3-inch little 12mm orbit, and you know, I'm going to do the A-pillar here. I'm going to do the mirror, but the problem is if I put like 4 dots, it's hard to spread it around. So I'll fling it all over the place. So a couple of little tricks you can do, just take some polish, put it on the paint in a couple of spots, and I can just grab that bead as I'm sort of coming around. The contour of the A-pillar from rocking back and forth. Because this is a tighter area, I don't need to come back. I'll grab the bead. I don't need to come back and go over this as many times as I would the bigger. And now if I really wanted to get in here, if this was all scratched up, we've already checked this, but if this was all scratched up, we get the nano out and go in there, get in real tightly. They're sort of swirled out. A-pillar. So I'm on my normal speed 4.5 on this version 1. Now I don't know if you can get the camera in there, but see, and I didn't tell you this, but see how the actual edge of the pad is out here. Right. But see how you can see the yellow part? That's the sort of the working part of the, because the pad warps. Yeah. So that's the area of the pad that you want to line up with the edge of any surface that you're polishing. Right. Double check my towel. And I'm going to use some eraser. So that way I have to put less pressure on it, or no pressure. polish off. Can't tell if that's a residue. Oh, that's residue from the. So we're dialed pretty good. So of course this is the long neck. Oops. Long neck hybrid. I have it in random orbit mode. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do ammo reflex foundation coat. Let's see. Yep, okay. So then I'm gonna bring the pad and make sure I get it all in there. And I'm gonna apply it in straight lines. And I don't know why I just started right here, but this is where I started. And when it gets grabby is when we need to add a little bit more. So here's a little tip as I'm sort of learning how to work with this. It's grabby when you're first putting it on the paint. So what we've been doing is, I'll go over one layer and then I'll come back over that just where it glides a little smoother, just to make sure that I filled in all the gaps. All right, so we're gonna let this sit for another maybe 10 minutes. Took us about 20 minutes to do the whole car, and then we're gonna come back through and wipe it off. I think I'm the only one who cares about this. Me and me.
Now that, see, I didn't even really think about it, but now that you mention it, I want them off.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
This does look very wax-like to me, which is what we want. So be real careful on that B-pillar. Well, it certainly doesn't look like a coating, so that's step one good. It looks, now again, it's harder to tell. We'll be able to tell a little better when we do like my blue. But it doesn't have this synthetic sort of look that coating does. I'm digging it. Now rubber will leach this forever, but we need to at least get the contaminants off of it, get it cleaned, so that way we can then follow with our nano coating or nano sealant to get it a nice solid bond. So I'm going to get a good sort of layer on here to start, and then I'm going to come back and follow it so that I get even coverage. And again, for me, everything's all about satin. I want it nice satin finish. I don't want to have shine. So then I'll take my towel, come back and wipe off the excess. This also helps to make sure that I get even coverage. And we're going to come back. We're going to do another coat of this. So alcohol on the windows, just straight alcohol. So this is like a 50-50 solution of water and alcohol. We've already auto scrubbed the windows. when we decontaminated the car. So just to get those prepped and ready. I'm using a CarPro suede block. And then I always put woofs on in circles. Usually this will be a little streaky or like a little for a couple of washes. So do this on the door jambs. Let's throw some CarPro reload up in here. And just wipe it off. And then you do the same thing over here. And I'm going to put a second coat on the windshield. The rest of the car, we're just going to do one coat. We'll be fine. See why I wait till the end. All right. So we'll let the glass stay. And let's do skin. So it's been several hours. So this has had time to sort of set up and cure. So my guess is that's about all we need. And then we apply it just like, in straight lines, just like the other stuff. I think it might be beneficial to go one way and then come back the other, make sure we get it all on there. And then this will be something you'll want to do another coat of later on after your first wash. And then periodically, like once a quarter. It smells like a Men's Warehouse or something, you know, like a suit store. So we've got ammo skin, just put a coat on the car, entire car. We have woofs on the windows. So we have to sort of let that haze over, and then we'll come back and wipe it off. Yeah, I did all that. Waffle weave and some Adams glass cleaner to get the woofs off the glass. So windows are clean. Last step is to wipe off the skin. So we'll just wipe it off with some 320 GSM. Yeah, I suspect this would come off easy, just the way it went on. Oh yeah, that's what it's all about right there. So here we go. You know, it's hard to see any major difference on camera, but certainly you can feel the difference. Yeah, on the carbon fiber roof, we can see the biggest difference in just clarity, depth. You know, any positive word you want to throw at it, it looks great. And then the fun part is running the back of your hand. If we weren't so sweaty, it would be more, it'd be more fun to run your hand across the paint.